Now, the Department of Agriculture is threatening to seize plant-based products using names associated with meat. Meat-free alternatives like the Beyond Burger, vegan biltong and vegetarian sausages have been on our South African shelves for years. So many producers of vegan and vegetarian goods are questioning why all the fuss. For more on this, I'm joined by the Department's Director for Food Safety and Quality Assurance, Billy Makafula. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. You've taken a hardline approach to plant-based foods, referencing, well-known food products like biltong. What are your biggest concerns?
Good evening. Look, we are not necessarily taking a hardline approach. The approach has already been taken in 2019 when the regulations for processed meat were published. In that regulation, we actually specified names that are to be used in the sale of processed meat products. And those names are prescribed. And those names include all of those names that are currently being used by those people who are selling meat analogs. That is the problem that we have. So what we actually sought to do this time around was to give direction to the assignee, that is the implementing agency, food safety agency, to say that this is the actual implementation that has to occur in respect of those products that are being sold as under the names of processed meat products.
So with the use of names associated with these processed meat products, how do you believe that vegan or vegetarian companies are benefiting?
No. It's not a question of benefiting. All that we are saying is that, look, we are a Department of Agriculture, so we support both the production of food from plant-based or plant, vegetables or plant. At the same time, we also support the production of food from animals, livestock, so to speak. So what we are saying is that label them correctly. You can sell them as vegan and use whatever names, for as long as those names are not names that are prescribed for processed meat products. So we are not necessarily against the sale of those products. What we are against is the use of names that are for or processed meat products in the sale of plant-based products.
So the use of names, a lot of consumers and the vegan and vegetarian producers are saying that South Africans are already accustomed to the use of these names. Your end line, of course, would be to ensure that consumers are fully aware of what they're purchasing without perhaps being mistaking a vegan product for a fully fledged meat product. Is that the case?
Of course, it's the case. But the only way to ensure that there's no confusion in the mind of any customer is to actually have that clear delineation line between names that are used for processed meat products and those names that can actually be identifiable with meat analogs or plant-based products or vegan products. So that is where we are. We are not necessarily saying that, look, sell your product, but use names that are going to resonate with the plant-based or meat analogs. And then those names that are associated or specifically prescribed for processed meat products should be left aside so that there's no blurring of lines. There's no confusion that is going to be created. But more than anything, we have to enhance free trade practices. In other words, there has to be fair competition based on fair practices. So if you are selling plant-based products, name them accordingly. If you are selling processed meat products, they are regulated already. There are standards against which this product are inspected against. So if you are then going to be saying something is built on, what is going to happen naturally is that the food safety agency will then have to come and measure those products against those names that are used for plant-based products. And what is going to happen is that in the course of the inspection, they'll certainly find that the compositional properties do not necessarily match up with the standard that has been prescribed for processed meat products. That's where the problem is.
So your move has not been met without some criticism. The vegan and vegetarian businesses argue that their products have already been on the market for years and they're well entrenched in the food system. So how do you move around that level of criticism?
We have spoken to them, but at the same time, it is astonishing because in the consultative process that began somewhere sometime before 2019, before the publication of the current regulation on processed meat, all of these stakeholders knew what was happening. We actually indicated that plant-based products or meat analogs are not necessarily going to be regulated. That actually sets them apart. But what we do have is processed meat products with its the names that have actually been set out in the regulations. And we said in the same regulation, no one shall actually use those product names unless those product names are actually classified and actually fall within the categories that are set out in the said regulation. That was something that we agreed on. However, if you say that you are now selling plant-based products, but then you want to use names of products that are regulated, you are then saying that your product now falls within the scope of the regulated product, which is processed meat product. And the standard for processed meat product will then be used against such product because you are invoking names that are not necessarily associated with the kind of product that you're actually putting out for sale.
So is this irrespective of the word vegan, perhaps, that may come before the word biltong?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's fair because the biltong is a regulated name. It's a name prescribed for that. So even if you actually put a prefix plant-based, then you put a suffix that biltong or something else that is actually, or a name that is actually being prescribed, it's going to be a problem.
So has the department, sorry to interrupt you, has the department perhaps come up with alternative names around describing what vegan biltong may be, or is this between the vegan and vegetarian businesses to decide?
No, I think it is for the vegan or the vegetarian industry or plant-based industry or meat analogs to come up with their own naming convention as to how are they going to name those products. At the same time, what we actually did as a department was to open the door and say that, look, as you are asking that the product themselves be regulated, we will actually be developing a regulation that specifically will talk to this product so that we then have a compositional standard that will be identifiable with a particular kind of product that is being. There are classes for this product. So whatever you have, then you have a uniform standard against which this product can be measured. At the same time, you then have names that can actually resonate with this product. So when you actually put them out there for sale, they are products that are distinguishable from the other products in terms of names and classes as well as standards. Hello.
Okay, I think we may have lost. Okay, you're still there. Okay, we lost you a little bit there. So you were talking about the names that need to be standardized for this industry.
Yes, in fact, the approach has already been made to the department that we should actually come up with a standard. Of course, that will also follow international, guidelines that are. We know that in Canada they already have standards for plant-based products. So we would actually have something to benchmark our very standard against. Of course, we know that the problem that we have in South Africa, specifically with this thing, is the problem that many countries in Europe, even in the USA, are actually wrestling with. But here in South Africa, we do have standards, of course, and that standard clearly delineates which name should actually be used where. And in that very context, we do not expect plant-based products to use names that are exclusively for processed meat product.
So the vegan vegetarian businesses say they are even considering legal remedies, but of course hoping to reach an amicable resolution with the department. What could this amicable resolution look like in your books?
The amicable resolution, one, is to say, fine, we are not going to be using those names. And therefore, we as the group, Meat Analog, we want to have a regulation that is going to regulate the manner in which this product are, well, compositionally, what it is that will certainly go as part of what will be the makeup of the ingredient of a claimed product associated with that name that will certainly be coming up with. So we standardize those things. Then once we standardize those things, then we have a regulation that specifically caters for those products. And that will certainly be one of the amicable solution in that respect. So that is the only solution that I see viable at this stage.
You've threatened to seize these products. What will the last straw be in enabling you to make that move?
No. It's not a question of threat. It is what is, when you look at the Agricultural Processed Act, being the act under which these regulations are promulgated or are published, actually sets out precisely penalties. And it is actually an offense. It's misleading. It's an offense to actually use names of prescribed, names that are prescribed for certain products. So names that are within regulations that falls under that very act.
Yeah.
So in that case, you then have to seize products that do not comply, because now you're using names that are prescribed. We're going to check your product against the standards that are associated with those names. And if we find your product wanting in that respect, it will then be seized. So it is then given the opportunity to relabel your product correctly, or else prevent such product from being sold under those names.
So your job is to really protect the end user, the consumer. And we have seen, especially more in the face of COVID-19, more and more consumers becoming health conscious. Why is it so important to ensure that labeling is regulated, especially when it comes to the consumer being fully aware of what they're consuming?
It is exactly, that is a contribution towards it. Remember, question of labeling cuts across departments. The Department of Health does actually do horizontal labeling. We do vertical labeling in terms of the Agricultural Processed Act. So it cuts across. But at the same time, it is that kind of contribution that helps. But it's not only consumers only. It is also to ensure that there's fair trade among traders of this product in agriculture. Mm-hmm. There's fair trade, there's clear respect for the names that are associated with certain products, there's clear respect for other names. So you sell and actually compete fairly and trade fairly in that respect. So the question of two things. We are doing fair trade practice, we are promoting fair trade practice, while at the same time ensuring there's consumer protection.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for that discussion. Billy Makafula, Food Safety and Quality Assurance Director in the Department of Agriculture.